Vande Gujarat.
Hi, my name is Nisha Mehta and I welcome you to another series of Linguaskill Speaking. So today's module is all about the integrated speaking. In the last 5 modules, we saw a lot of things that will help you prepare or that will help any candidate prepare for Linguaskill examinations. Today we're going to talk about, before we start with the speaking module, we're going to talk a little about what Linguaskills is and what is the exam all about. Linguaskill, it is basically an examination available in 2 options to the candidates. One, Linguaskill General, and the second one is Linguaskills Business. Now these 2 options assesses the ability of the candidate in English language. However, there's a little difference between the 2. Linguaskill General basically assesses English language used in daily life. तो Linguaskill General जितने भी candidates ले रहे हैं वो English language skills उनकी general English which is used in daily life, जो रोज़मर्रा की ज़िंदगी में English का जो इस्तेमाल होता है वो assess करता है या वो judge करता है. And the Linguaskill Business assesses English language used in a business environment. Linguaskill Business जो option available candidates को है वो उनकी ability in English language और proficiency in English language को test करता है business environment में. तो एक तरीके से ये recruiters को help करता है या employers को help करता है job देने में, plus the candidate if he's appearing or he's giving or appearing in a job interview, it helps employers to know how proficient is the candidate in English language. Now, in the last 5 modules of the speaking series, I spoke about different grammar topics, the test formats, and what are the general tips and instructions that one can apply to ace this examination. However, there are still a couple of things that we need to practice so that candidates have an idea as to how exactly the questions are being asked. In this module, we are also going to talk about all the things that were done in the previous set of modules and in a detailed way. हम detailed way में देखेंगे, हम एक विस्तार रूप से देखेंगे कि इस मॉड्यूल में या पिछले कुछ 5 मॉड्यूल्स में हमने कौन से टॉपिक्स किए थे और क्या चीज़ें ऐसी ज़रूरी हैं जो एक कैंडिडेट को दिमाग में रखना है when he or she appears for an examination, जब वो एग्ज़ाम के लिए अपीयर करें. So let's move ahead and see what is the test format. सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे कि test format क्या है and then later on we'll start with some general instructions and tips for the speaking. Let's see. So we have the test. If we look at the test format, now why we are discussing the test format in the beginning of each module, if you're watching us for the first time, if you're watching the series for the first time, it is going to help you to know what exactly is being asked and how it is asked in the examinations. Now, Linguaskill examination, as we said, that it is a candidate can opt for a general test or a business test. However, in this module, we are only going to talk about the test format related to Linguaskill Business. So, what can a candidate do or what are the things that he needs to keep in mind before he appears for Linguaskill Business examination and the speaking test especially. So let's look at the test format. Now the test format for speaking series says that speaking consists of 5 different parts. 5 different parts हैं इसके अंदर, which is the first part is the introduction. हम हर part को detail में जानेंगे भी और आगे उनसे related questions भी हम इसमें लेंगे. We're going to pick a lot of sample questions and answers in the speaking module, in the integrated speaking module. However, let's get to this test format in detail first. So it says speaking consists of 5 different tasks that will be given to the candidate. And the first task is the introduction. the introduction or the interview, you can say, a candidate will be asked 8 questions in this particular task. So candidate से 8 questions पूछे जाएंगे. 8 questions जो कि based होंगे उनकी life पे, which is maybe personal life, as in what is your name, what do you do, or maybe what is your job profile. So some of these sample questions we are going to do at the end of this series. Now let's talk about the second part or the second task. It says read aloud sentences. Now read aloud sentences, as we mentioned in the previous speaking modules, that read aloud section will have 8 sentences for the candidate to read. Now, what exactly is reading? I'm going to share that with you once again. So, there will be 8 sentences. 8 sentences candidate को दिए जाते हैं और वो 8 sentences candidate अपने intonation, rhythm, stress को ध्यान में रखते हुए उन्हें पढ़ेगा सीधा कंप्यूटर स्क्रीन से. सो कंप्यूटर स्क्रीन पे आपको 8 sentences दिखाए जाएंगे. Now 8 sentences जब आपको दिखाए जाते हैं तो that is not shown in one go. एक साथ आपको 8 sentences नहीं दिखाए जाएंगे. The candidate will be shown the sentences one by one. Now one by one you have to read the sentence. You have to make sure that your reading has proper intonation and pronunciation. The main aim of this particular task is to make sure your pronunciation of the words are in place. Pronunciation जो शब्दों का बोलना है वो place पे है and वो words बिल्कुल सही तरीके से pronounce किए जा रहे हैं. इस test का ये aim है. Now, all the 8 sentences right from the beginning to the end, let me tell you one thing, that the sentences will always be from simple. They would always go from simple to difficult ones. So you will have to make sure that your reading of the sentences does not take too much of time, or you're not taking too much of time reading just one word. Let's move on to the next task. What do we have in the speaking task is, you're speaking on a given topic. So you speak on the given topic for at least a minute. Now this is the third task in the speaking test. So after reading aloud all the sentences, once the candidate has read all the sentences, he or she will be posed with another task, which is 1 minute task on which he has to speak. Now, there are a couple of things that the candidate has to keep in mind, and we're going to do that later on. However, let's just get to the speaking test format first and then talk about each of the things in detail. So the third topic says speak on a topic for a minute. Fourth says speak on a visual or a graphic for 1 minute. And the last task is communication-based task. So it's basically a communication between the computer and the candidate. So the candidate will be given a task, and he or she will be asked few questions based on the task, on which he has to answer the things. Now, what is so difficult about this task is that the candidate, when he's given a task, is not posed or is not given a time limit. He's not given a time to prepare himself. So it is a set of random questions that will be asked based on the text or based on what is the task. So you get the task. You have just 30 seconds or 40 seconds to prepare for the task. And you're just allowed to go through all the prompts that have been given in the question. So all the questions, जितने भी questions इस communication task में आपसे पूछे जाएंगे, all the communication questions will be based on the prompts given in the question. We'll do the question to get an idea as to how exactly the question will be asked in the examination. एग्जामिनेशन में क्वेश्चन कैसे पूछा जाएगा, इसका एक सैम्पल हम टेस्ट सीरीज के एंड में लेंगे. लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट थिंग विच इज़ जनरल टिप्स फॉर स्पीकिंग. नाउ दीज आर सम ऑफ द टिप्स included in the beginning of this session to help you know all the tasks in detail and what are the things that are going to help you ace each task हर टास्क आपको बहुत अच्छे से किस तरीके से बोला जाएगा या आप किस तरीके से उसे अपने आंसर्स को फॉर्म कर सकते हैं, दैट इज़ व्हाट will be shared in the tips of speaking. Now, most importantly, just would like to share, before we proceed, I would just want to share one thing here with all the candidates who are appearing for the examination. You can, two key factors that are going to help you ace any examination. दो चीज़ें जो आपको एग्ज़ाम, कोई भी एग्ज़ाम या टेस्ट सीरीज़ पास करने में या एस करने में मदद करती है, वो ये है, पहली चीज़, preparation or practice is the key. We say that practice makes man perfect, and that's true. So the first thing, you have to make sure that you're practicing it daily. And communication is one thing that without practice, you would not know what exactly you want to talk about or what exactly you're going to say in your answers, whether they are prepared, whether they are unprepared, or they are random set of questions. So in this, some of the things or two things that would help you ace the exam is, first, you are preparing for the test, and second, that when you prepared, fully prepared, you make sure that you're applying that knowledge in all the frequently asked questions. So once you prepare the things, you're done with all the things, you have to apply whatever you have learned in your speaking. Again, that's a speaking practice. Now, general tips are certain things that are going to help you ace this examination. Any exam that you're giving would be based on certain instructions, certain tips, and if you follow those tips and instructions, you will make sure that yes, you're securing a good place for yourself. So let's move ahead and see what are some of the general tips and instructions for speaking module. So it is a time-based test, and the candidates can frame the answers accordingly. If we talk about the time, now just to elaborate a little bit on it, if you talk about time, now Linguaskill is one such examination where your answers are timed. Now, how exactly they are timed? Like for example, the first task that you have in the examination for the test format is the introduction, right? And when you talk about introduction, you're asked 8 set of questions to answer. Now the timed test says that every answer, for each answer, you have 10 seconds to 20 seconds in the second task, 10 seconds in the first task to answer the questions. तो पहले सेट में या पहले टास्क में जो आपसे क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाते हैं इंट्रोडक्शन में, उसमें आपको 10 सेकेंड का टाइमर दिया जाएगा बोलने के लिए, अपने आंसर्स प्रेजेंट करने के लिए. Now, when you get the 10 seconds answer, 10 seconds time to answer, you always make sure that your answers are, or they should be correct, accurate. So what you need to do is make sure you prepare yourself in such a way, the candidates prepares themselves in such a way that you are answering the questions based on your time, based on the time that you have. Now let's move ahead and see what is the second point. It says try to use complex grammar structures, and this will help you gain a good or a high CEFR score. Now what is high CEFR score? CEFR score refers to Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. So एक set format है, एक rubric है जहाँ पर CEFR एक scale है जहाँ पर candidate को assess किया जाता है, mark किया जाता है. Now वो किस base पे mark किया जाएगा is to make sure that the candidate uses complex grammar structures. What is complex grammar structures? In the previous couple of sessions, again, I would say if you're watching us for the first time, you have to make sure you go back to the series, the speaking module series, and you can just go through the sentence structures that we have shared in the previous series. So sentence structures would be simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. So what it says is that whenever you're giving the speaking exam, जब आप speaking exam देते हैं तो ये ज़रूरी है कि आप complex structures का इस्तेमाल करें, use करें. Why? Because you get a higher score on the CEFR scale. आपको एक ज़्यादा स्कोर CEFR स्केल पे मिलता है, and that is one of the reasons it is mandatory, or maybe it is required, or you can say that you are asked to speak in complex grammar. There's always one thing that when you prepare for the sentence patterns and sentence structures, you also prepare for frequently asked questions. Now, what exactly are the frequently asked questions? इसके बारे में मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एक explanation दे देती हूँ. When you talk about frequently asked questions, they are the questions which are asked time and again in the examination. तो एग्जामिनेशन में क्या होता है कि बार बार वो क्वेश्चंस हर साल हर बार कैंडिडेट से पूछे जा रहे हैं. These are the questions that may be updated on the website of Cambridge, because this examination is by Cambridge. So you can visit the Cambridge website, as well as you can, go through a lot of material available on maybe sample questions, or maybe questions that are asked in Linguaskill examinations via Google. So this is something that you can do if you want to practice more. We have definitely some of the integrated speaking module. We have a lot of questions already there, already for you. However, if you think that you require more practice, go ahead, Google all the questions, and you're going to see that you have more material, more frequently asked questions. All right, so let's move on to the next part, which says pronounce and intonate your sentences properly. Now, along with the tip, I would just like to say a couple of things here. Intonate your sentences properly. When you say intonate your sentences, intonation means what? If you haven't watched the previous series, just again a reminder that please make sure that you go and watch the speaking series once again to have an idea of what intonation is. But in short, if I would say, intonation is just the rise and fall of your tone. Nothing much, but just the way you speak, right? So, it should look like if you're happy, your tone says that. If you're sad, your sentences, or the sentences that are coming out of your mouth, you're expressing your sadness in such a way that there are rise and falls in the sentences. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि intonation means, you just have to say everything in a flat tone. So for example, if I say, my name is Nisha Mehta, right? So that's kind of a flat tone for us. So if I intonate it properly, and if I say, my name is Nisha Mehta, so you see, there are some rise and falls and stuff. So what happens is, when you are, putting intonation and rhythm and stress on the words, you will see that there is a lot of expression, or the candidate can express himself appropriately and accordingly, according to the task or the question being asked. Intonation, what happens is, now this is a computer-based test. Linguaskill exam is a computer adaptive test. So what happens is, when you're not pronouncing the words correctly, or when you are not saying things in an appropriate way, you will see that the words that the computer picks up will be incorrect. And that will again affect your CEFR score. तो अगर आप कुछ ऐसा गलत बोलते हैं, it is a computer test, कंप्यूटर बेस्ड टेस्ट है, सामने कोई ह्यूमन नहीं है टेस्टिंग के लिए. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज, जो वर्ड आप बोल रहे हैं वो वर्ड कंप्यूटर में अंडरस्टैंडेबल अगर नहीं हुआ तो वो वर्ड रॉन्गली मार्क हो जाता है, जिसकी वजह से आपका CEFR स्कोर अफेक्ट होता है. So it is very important that you intonate your sentences and pronounce your sentences properly and pronounce the words properly. Put appropriate stress, give equal amount of, spacing between the words. So do not take too much of time, because it is a time-based test. Take appropriate time to speak all the words, but make sure you finish it within the time. Let's move on to the next general tip, and see what do we have. It says, try to expand your answers whenever you can. Avoid giving one-word answers. So let's just elaborate on this a little bit. Try to expand your answers wherever you can. Most of the times, when questions are being asked in a hurry, or maybe we can say in a very hasty mood, we just tend to give one-liners or one-word answers. Refrain yourself from the one-word answers, because that will not help the examiner. That will not help the examiner judge or assess you properly in your speaking. See, if somebody is asking me, what is your name? That's a simple question, right? So if somebody says, what is your name? And if I just say Nisha, or maybe Smith, how does that sound? It might not sound right. It might not sound, because how will the other person or maybe the computer judge you or assess you? There was just one word spoken from your mouth. So if the question is, where do you stay or where do you live? Now, if I just say, I stay in Mumbai, or if I just say Mumbai, what is the difference? Do you see the difference? If I say, I stay in Mumbai, that's a complete sentence. Or maybe if I say, I live in the capital city of India, which is New Delhi. So that's again a very good expression of explaining yourself. Now, I would just not, pose or give my answers in one word saying Mumbai or maybe New Delhi. So this is the wrong way to answer the questions. Make sure that every question that is being asked to you, whether it is a open-ended question or it is a close-ended one, maybe just to elaborate a little bit on it, if you're asked a yes or no question, make sure you are still not saying yes or no. Just for an example, if you say, let's take a question first and then the answer. If I say, or what are your likes or dislikes, or do you like to spend your weekend with your family? Do you like to spend your weekend with your family? If I ask this question, there's an obvious answer of saying yes, no. The answer could be yes or the answer could be no. However, please refrain yourself from answering yes or no, because yes or no will not help the computer or maybe the examiner to know what is your proficiency level, whether you are good in speaking or not. So even if it is a yes or a no question, please make sure you support your answer with all the examples, with all the things necessary. So for example, if somebody says, do you like to spend your time with your family on weekends? Just say, well, I love to spend my time with my family on weekends, because usually what happens is I am off or I'm away for work from Monday to Friday. I'm away from the city. I stay in another city. So usually when there are weekends, I come back and spend my time with my family, and I love that. So that can be one of the accepted answers to the questions. Expand your answers. Do not stick to one word, one-liners, because obviously we have the time limit to all the answers. We have 10 seconds to speak. However, make sure even if you are cut off in between the sentences, you won't be penalized for it. So what you can do is you can just make sure that you are preparing in such a way that you complete your answer within the time frame and you're not giving one-liners or one-word answers. Let's move to the next speaking instructions and see what do we have on our screen. All right, the next point here says that support your answers wherever you can. So you have to make sure that whenever you need some examples or some experiences to be put in your speaking, always do that, because that is going to help you gain a good grip over your speaking as well as a good or a high CEFR score. So expand your answers. Now, again, if I would say, if you're expanding your answers, do not go off the point. Be relevant. Stick to the relevance. Stick to what is being asked. Do not just beat around the bush or do not just talk irrelevant things when you are being asked such questions. Now let's move on to, it says be relevant in giving your answers as the time is limited. In part 3 and 4, plan your 1 minute time given for the preparation. Now this is just a general or you can say a specific tip for your speaking part 3 and part 4. Now just to expand on it, there is 1 minute that will be given to you for speaking. Now that 1 minute you have for speaking is maybe a time, a 40 seconds time to 1 minute time will be given to you for preparation. So for example, before you're being given or presented, while you're presented with the topic, there will be a timer that will help you go ahead and prepare for that particular topic. For this, it is essential that you are required to make all the bullet points. You're not required to write all the sentences, supposed to write all the sentences because you don't have that time. You just have 40 seconds to 1 minute. 1 minute to make sure that you're preparing the entire topic which is being asked to you in task 3 and 4. Now task 3 and 4, how they are different, how they are different from each other and what you have to do is something that I'm going to share with you. Now when you talk about task 3 is all about speaking for 1 minute. 1 minute में बात करेंगे आप and 1 minute or 40 seconds will be for your preparation. Now what do you have to prepare in that time? We're going to do later in the series. हम इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा विस्तार में बाद में बात करेंगे. However, एक चीज़ जो छोटी सी यहाँ मेंशन करने वाली है वो ये है कि जो प्रेपरेशन टाइम कैंडिडेट्स को दिया जाता है, that preparation time is to think about what you're going to say in the next 1 minute. 1 मिनट में आप नेक्स्ट क्या बोलने वाले हैं उसके बारे में सोचना, उसके बारे में विचरण करना is what that time is for. वो 40 seconds to 1 minute का टाइमर थिंक करने के लिए है. Now, what is something that you're going to do in that 1 minute time? Now 1 minute time के लिए we have something known as plan the answer, how you're going to plan for the answer. That is also, I'm going to share everything about planning your answers in or for that 1 minute. Before that, speaking for 1 minute topic is necessary. It is necessary that the candidates practice more frequently asked questions in this set. Because what happens is, even if you provide a neutral stand, like you're preparing some neutral statements, it can be applied to all the questions that are related to that. उसमें क्या होता है कि सारे क्वेश्चंस जो उससे रिलेटेड हैं वो न्यूट्रल स्टेटमेंट सभी क्वेश्चंस पे अप्लाई, सभी आंसर्स पे अप्लाई हो जाएगी. सो यू डोंट हैव टू प्रिपेयर सो मच टू just make sure that okay, this particular statement can be applied for all these answers. Now just to give you an example or a hint, if somebody is asking you a question based on, say, social media, if you have to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of social media, right? This particular question, if the task says you have to speak or talk about the advantages and disadvantages of social media, you will see that if you prepare a neutral statement, what is a neutral background statement? That you're preparing such statements that can be applied to all the questions that are asked for just social media. सोशल मीडिया से रिलेटेड जितने क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाएंगे उन सभी पे वो एक स्टेटमेंट लागू होती है. तो अगर मैं बोलती हूँ कि दैट सोशल मीडिया हैज़ लॉट ऑफ डिसएडवांटेजेस, लाइक सोशल मीडिया हैज़ अ लॉट ऑफ डिसएडवांटेजेस whereas couple of advantages, like, and then you can mention the advantages too. This is a statement that can be applied to all the questions that may be asked for the social media things. Couple of statements should be your go-to statements that you're preparing just for one topic. So there are multiple topics that you can pick up, and make sure while planning your answers, try to plan them in such a way that you are applying one statement to many questions of that sort. So this is going to help you introduction, where 8 questions are asked, whereas this will also help you to go about answering for part 3 and part 4. Now let's move ahead and see what are some of the basic instructions that we have on our screen. It is not necessary to give factual information all the time. You can make up your answers whenever you want or whenever you think there is a need to. Now what does that mean? Most of the times candidate gets a little confused. Let's get this point in a little detail. Candidates actually get confused whether they have to say things which are factual, which are facts. Candidates अक्सर ऐसा सोचते हैं कि हमें हर चीज़ सच पे बोलनी है. We have to talk, whatever we are talking, we have to talk, make sure that it is a fact or a truth. ऐसा नहीं है. Because what happens is, there are questions that may not even relate to your background or your job profile, or maybe you are not even linked to that department. However, if you go ahead and try to make up your answer, that is when you see that, or somehow you would be able to deal with that topic if you are being asked that question. तो हर बार फैक्चुअल इन्फॉर्मेशन देना या सच बोलना क्वेश्चंस में ज़रूरी नहीं है. कुछ जगहों पे आप आंसर्स को अपने तरीके से, अपने मन से बना भी सकते हैं. However, please make sure that your sentence structures are correct, appropriate and it is relevant. हर चीज़ relevance पे टिकी हुई है. Because what happens is, if somebody is asking you a question and you have not understood it, that is, when you try to answer the question, it is not relevant. That is where you can be marked a little low on the CEFR score or the scale. So please make sure the answers are relevant, the answers are timed, as well as the answers that you're preparing has to be spoken accordingly. Now let's see what are some of the other tips and instructions for this module. Try to finish the answers within the given time, as we said, because it is the timed test. But even if you do not, finish in time, or maybe you're cut off in between, you would not be penalized for it. So relax. Do not use abbreviations in your speaking. Please make sure that you're not using any abbreviations. Now, what are abbreviations? Do not use I can't or maybe I don't, because the computer cannot pick up your abbreviations at times. So please make sure बड़े सेंटेंस को या बड़े वर्ड को हम छोटा कर देते हैं, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर देते हैं, वो हमें नहीं करना है. बिकॉज कंप्यूटर कभी कभी उस चीज़ को उठा नहीं सकता. कंप्यूटर में ऐसा बहुत बार होता है दैट व्हेन यू स्पीक दैट एब्रीविएशन, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आपने कांट बोला या डोंट बोला या इजंट बोला, तो वो कंप्यूटर उस वर्ड को पिक नहीं कर पाता. एंड दैट्स वेयर यू आर मार्क्ड अ लिटिल लो ऑन द CEFR score or the scale. However, please make sure that whatever you speak at a constant pace. And constant pace के साथ, constant speed के साथ, उसके अंदर abbreviations बिल्कुल भी ना हो. There should be no abbreviations in your speaking. You speak the correct and the complete form of all the words. So if I have to say, I cannot go to the office today as I'm unwell, you would just say, I cannot. You would not say, I can't go to the office today because I'm unwell. So let's move ahead and see what's the next instruction on our screen. And it says, do not use abbreviations, as I said. It says, be prepared in adjectives that you may have to use to describe any person, place, or thing. So what and why and where will the adjectives be used? As I said, that adjectives are basically the qualities that you assign to the noun or to the pronoun. So what happens is, when a task is given to you, जब आपको एक task दी जाती है तो वहाँ पर ऐसा बहुत बार there's a possibility that you might be asked to fix certain adjectives or maybe fix certain qualities in place. So if you're speaking for 1 minute, maybe you're describing a place, you're describing a person, you're describing anything. Now how you're going to describe or you're going to assign that quality is, वो किस तरीके से assign किया जाएगा? For that, you need to be prepared with the adjectives. As I said, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हम सिर्फ adjectives prepare कर रहे हैं. We have to make sure that we are preparing topics like adverbs and conjunctions too, because that helps in the transition while speaking. जब आप बात करते हैं तो एक सेंटेंस से दूसरे सेंटेंस पर जाने के लिए या ट्रांजिशन करने के लिए you require appropriate words. So make sure your adjectives and your adverbs are in place. Adjectives and adverbs के बिना transition लेना या किसी चीज़ को describe करना एक तरीके से नामुमकिन है. Or else you would have to, if you're not using these things, the complex grammar structures जिसमें ये सारी चीज़ें आती हैं already, you would not be able to use that. So complex grammar structure use करने के लिए it is important that you make sure you use a lot of adverbs and a lot of adjectives so that your sentences seem appropriate, your sentences seem a little complex than simpler. Let's move ahead and see what we have on our screen. So it's all about planning, planning, and planning. Planning your answer. Now, this particular topic is involved in the integrated speaking module. Why? For a reason. Plan your answer says that you got to plan your answer accordingly. Every answer that comes out of your mouth or the candidate speaks, there has to be a proper planning of the answer, right? So for example, if you are not prepared for the answer, you will see that if somebody is asking you a question, what are you doing this weekend? अगर किसी ने आपसे पूछा कि इस बार आप weekend पे क्या कर रहे हैं? What are you doing on this weekend? If you're not prepared, अगर आप prepare नहीं होते हैं, आप randomly answer करते हैं, तो random answer होगा I am doing nothing, or maybe I am sleeping, or maybe I don't know what I'm going to do. So these are some of the random answers that the candidate may speak while the examination is going on. However, if you are prepared, if you know what to speak, if you have the background, neutral background statements for all the questions, you will see that you will have a constant or maybe the exact answer for how things should go on. So if somebody is asking me, what are you doing this weekend? I would just say, if I'm prepared or my answer is planned, I'm just going to say, well, I think I'm going to go for a movie with my friends. Because for the past 1 month, I don't think we have seen any movie. So this is a planned answer. Instead of saying, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or, well, nothing. I don't think we're doing anything. So these are some of the unplanned answers that a candidate may speak if he's not prepared. So the key is to plan your answer. I know the questions in the examinations can be random. However, if you're very good in your speaking skills, if you're good in planning your answers and saying your answers, presenting your answers in a very good way, I'm pretty sure that you are going to ace the examination. So plan your answer. Now there are a couple of steps to plan the answer. Let's look at that first. Prepare a neutral background statement for topics like activities or maybe events, people, things, places. Always make sure that your activities, you're preparing a statement, the common statement for all the answers. Maybe, one common statement that can be applied to all the answers or maybe questions that may be asked in the examination for activities, events, or maybe people, thing, places. Any question that may be asked to you related to this, you must have a neutral statement so that not much of the time is wasted when you think. Not much of the time is wasted in thinking. Let's move ahead and see what's the second second task or second thing to plan your answer. It says prepare all the possible WH questions, which is who, when, where, what, where, why. Now, prepare all the questions that begins with WH. So, all the questions which you think can be asked or you think can, the examination, it is a frequently asked question in the examination, should be prepared. Just go for background neutral statements which can be applied to one or more set of questions. Always make sure that you are preparing the WH questions more than anything else. Because for close-ended questions, you can just say yes and no and support your answer with these statements. But when it is the WH questions, that is where you require a little bit of explanations. Because they are open-ended questions, तो एक छोटी सी explanation उस पे ज़रूरी चाहिए. Let's move ahead and see what we have in the plan, the answer next. It says, prepare for all the collocations or phrasal verbs instead of single vocabulary words. इस बारे में हम बहुत ज़्यादा सारी सीरीज़ में, whether in a speaking series or reading series, हम इस पे बात कर चुके हैं कि collocations का बोलना और रीडिंग के लिए भी इसका एग्ज़ाम में प्रिपेयर करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. Collocations का मतलब होता है grouping of the words. दो words को साथ में बोलना. So please make sure that you are, instead of preparing a single set of words, एक word को prepare करने से अच्छा हम set of words, we're preparing the words together in a collocation. So the grouping of words together in a sentence. Now what does collocation do? Collocation will help you gain clarity over your speaking, over your sentences that you speak. And also it will help you express yourself in a very fine way. बहुत ही finest way में आप अपने आप को express कर सकते हैं with the help of phrasal verbs and collocations. Not two big sentences will be spoken. You will just speak right sentences, but with the help of collocations and phrasal verbs. Like, phrasal verbs like give away or give in, give up. You don't tell people that you should be motivated or you should be inspired, work hard and you will succeed. You just say that do not give up. Now that give up is a combination of two words and it is also a phrasal verb. Phrasal verb basically is nothing but a combination of verb and a preposition. एक verb और preposition को जब आप साथ में लाते हैं, that becomes a phrasal verb और उस phrasal verb का automatically एक meaning होता है. तो इतना बड़ा sentence जब आप बोलें, you are speaking a bigger sentence. Instead of that, you just spoke one sentence and that too a very short one with appropriate meaning. Now let's move ahead and see what we have in plan for the answer. It says make bullet points in the presentation or preparation. Make sure that when a preparation time is given to you, make bullet points or write down all the bullet points, and bullet points should be based on your prompts that you have been given, right? And make sure you want to include everything that is there in the prompt. So this is how you can plan the answer with all the steps, necessary steps that we have shared in the integrated module for speaking. Now let's see a couple of questions, sample questions for different parts. This will mark the end of the speaking series with all the instructions and tips and the test formats. However, if you have any problems, you can just go back to the general tips and instructions, specific instructions for the speaking series as well as the integrated module, so that you have an idea as to how you're going to answer the questions. Now, these are some of the sample questions in front of you on your screen, and you can just see or go through all the questions. I'm going to answer a few questions for you when you go ahead and give the part 1 or the task 1 for speaking. So it says, what is your name? The possible answer can be, my name is Nisha Mehta. Where are you from? I am from the capital city, New Delhi, which is located in the northern India. What is your job profile currently? Well, I work for the You can talk about anything that you're currently doing here. Now, if I have to just say what is my job profile currently, I can just say that I am a software engineer by profession and I work for Dell. I've been working there for the past 4 years. That's it. Because in the 10 seconds time, you can just say 2 or 3 sentences maximum. Nothing more than that. How difficult it is to get a job in your country. If somebody is saying that, how difficult it is to get a job in your country. Well, it is a little bit difficult to get a job in our country because most of the job requirements are pretty high. Like, for example, a person needs to complete his master's or maybe PhD for some of the jobs, whereas the other jobs require giving examinations or the government examinations to get a good job or get a job in our country. Now, are the people in the country more into jobs or businesses? Now here, in this question, this is a close-ended question where you just see yes or a no, right? So in this question, you can just talk about, do not just say yes or a no. You can just say, yes, people in our country are more into business because we have the business class or maybe people are more into the agricultural part, or we have 70% of the land is agricultural land, and that's one of the reasons why people are into businesses related to agriculture. So anything that you think you can justify in just 10 seconds can be spoken here. If you think that more people are into jobs or more people are into business, you can answer it accordingly. And if you think, you can just say that, yes, I think it is the equal ratio of the people in jobs or businesses. 50% I think are in jobs, whereas the other 50% are in businesses. And people who are into businesses are related to maybe textile or agriculture. And if you can talk about jobs, yes, we have a lot of jobs in our country which is linked or related to, which is related to IT industry. So these are a couple of questions. You can try answering the rest of the question in your speaking and practice them. Let's see what are some of the other parts on your screen. So this is a sample question for part 2, which is a read aloud. You can practice reading all these sentences in your comfort zone or at home. You can just practice speaking these sentences in an intonated way. It says, the company needs employee who can speak more than one languages. So this is how you just have to read the sentences without any unnecessary pauses in it. Make sure you intonate properly and your pronunciation for all the words should be correct. For intonations, you can just go back to the speaking series and watch what exactly you need to follow for intonations. Let's move on to the next part and the sample question. You can just go through the sample questions which is there on your screen for part 2, and you can practice them accordingly. These are the sample questions for part 3. And last but not the least, you can also go through the sample question that we have for part 4, which is the visual or the graphic. The sample is right there on your screen. It says a graphic will be given to you and you will be given a set of questions in which you will just look at the graphic, you will just look at the prompts, and you're going to speak for 1 minute on what do you see in the graphics. All the points will be given to you in the question. All the things will be given to you as prompts in the question. Please make sure that you include everything that is a part of your prompt in the question. So that's the question or sample question for part 4. And with that, we come to the end of the integrated speaking module. For this, before I go, I would just leave a little explanation for all the candidates so that it is going to help them ace the examination. Make sure you just have to keep in mind 2 things to go for the examination. 1, the preparation, and keeping in mind that it is a time-based test. Second, make sure you are going with all the confidence in your speaking skills. So make sure that you're not fumbling, you're not pronouncing words incorrect, you're practicing ample questions, ample answers to give or to speak fluently in the examination. Practice is the key. With practice, you can improve daily. So it is important that you practice your speaking and reading skills on a daily basis before you appear for the examination. And also, before you go for the examination, do not forget to read all the instructions and the tips for speaking or for the other modules, which is reading, writing, and listening. With this, I end the speaking series, and I wish you all the best for your examinations. Thank you.